What's up, YouTube? Here to make a little video, talk about some of the politics and stuff going on during this election. And I'm doing it because I'm pissed off! I see a lot of misinformation floating around. I think we're talking about a lot of the wrong issues. I think there's a lot of things that people could be doing better instead of focusing on small little details that don't matter. So, at this point in time, as you guys probably know, we're down to basically Bernie and Hillary on the Democratic side and most likely Trump on the Republican side, unless some crazy stuff goes on throughout the Electoral College. You've seen so far that there are probably vastly more Bernie supporters than Hillary supporters, at least in my demographic and the people around me. I have had a hard time finding anybody that supports Hillary, yet she's still winning almost every state. Some things that need to be talked about, I guess, if people are actually voting for her that much, is her levels of corruption. I've seen pictures of her with Robert Byrd, who used to be a KKK leader. He did renounce his membership and everything else, but she still endorsed him and said what a great senator he was and everything when he decided to retire. And then meanwhile, you have Trump, who just simply refused to denounce the support of David Duke, who is affiliated with the Klan, and the media covers it and chastises him constantly. So, what I want to talk about basically is what's going on. Now, I saw a study recently that said whenever you get groups of people together and you get groupthink going on and you also have opposition, both parties become more radicalized and they become more polarized than they were before. And that's what's happening a lot that I see in this election. And people are forgetting about what really matters. There's, a lot of the Bernie supporters are pushing for these social issues. You got a lot of Black Lives Matter behind him. You have a lot of LGBT behind him. And, there's minority rights and all this stuff going on, which in reality, if you ask me, constantly talking about race and social issues is only going to magnify the problems. If you just constantly push and push and push and, everybody has to accept this, I just don't think that that's naturally the way that the human genome or whatever works. If you look back throughout history, humans lived in tribes. Tribes were most likely all like-minded people and shared similar moral values and cultures, etc. It doesn't even really have anything to do with race. Just in general, I think people like to be around groups of people who share like-minded thinking principles. And the only reason I'm really even bringing this into the topic is because we have some real serious issues going on right now. We've been in a war for 15 years now. We've got tons of economic issues. We got a military-industrial complex. We have trade deals that are robbing us of jobs and taking money out of the economy. We got a huge immigration problem going on, whether or not anybody wants to talk about it or admit it. We have issues with our welfare system. We have issues with our healthcare system. I mean, the list is almost endless, but people are getting stuck on these social issues. We have a two-party system with Republicans on one side saying, you can't have birth control, but I don't want to give you welfare, and you gotta have God. You gotta have God. And then you got Democrats on the other side saying, well, we'll give you guys everything, and we'll let everybody come in, and everybody can hug, and everybody can be how they want to be, and, if you think you're a girl, go ahead and pee in the girls' room. That's okay. And all these other social issues, and nobody can just meet in the middle and actually get anything done or do anything that makes any sense, because both sides are so polarized and sticking to their guns on every single issue. Now, I'll tell you guys right now, I do tend to identify more with the conservative side, but I'm going to try to keep this channel a little bit neutral. I'm going to look at both sides of the issue as I usually do. I do tend to gravitate towards the conservative answer, but that's okay. I'm going to try to keep this no bias. I want this to be like an open area where people can talk and maybe people can actually make sense of some things. Now, whether or not, this channel is going to get a lot of traffic or anything, I don't really care. I just want to do this basically for myself to stay informed. I want to do it for anybody that happens to listen, and if it does happen to grow, that would be great, because I can't stand some of the stuff I'm seeing within our society, and I think it's so backwards and misinformed that people don't realize that we're being taken advantage of. I think this whole nightmare started whenever NAFTA was passed. NAFTA, I believe, is 23 years old now. I'm not sure if that's the exact quote, but I was just doing some research on it recently. And I was doing this because I seen the TPP and TPIP is going to be pushed through, and they're actually trying to fast track it. They passed some legislation so that it can be moved through faster. So the best indication of the future, obviously, is to look towards the past. So I looked back at NAFTA. Citizen.org did a 20-year research on what's happened throughout NAFTA and the future fate of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So Citizen is a bit of a partisan news source, but I've also looked at the other side, and I give the Citizen source a lot more credit. And you can't really argue the numbers. The numbers are right there, plain Jane. It's kind of hard to refute that. So it looks like we've lost about 1 million jobs so far, and more than 845,000 specific U.S. workers have been certified for trade adjustment assistance as of having their jobs lost due to imports from Canada and Mexico or the relocation of factories from those countries. So that right there kind of just lays it right out for you that we have lost jobs because of the fact that trade adjustment assistance is an actual program and that many people were eligible for it. But if that's not enough, our imports and exports used to kind of balance out. Some years we would have a bit of a deficit, and some years we would have a surplus. Well, in 1993, we went from a $1.7 billion surplus on the U.S. end of the trade to, in 2012, a $61.4 billion deficit. And that number's hovered around $60 billion since then. Now, if you don't understand quite exactly what that means, it means essentially in 1993 we did $1.7 billion more work and sold it than what we purchased. And now in 2012 we purchased $61.4 billion more from other countries than we sold out from our own. So without droning on and on, in my eyes it looks like NAFTA was a pretty bad deal, and it was pretty bad for manufacturing and for the blue-collar workers within the United States. It put us at competition of unfair markets because Mexico has far more lax labor laws and minimum wage than we do here in America. Now, looking here on Google for the minimum wage in Mexico, it looks like it comes up. I looked it up, and it says currently approximately $4.08 US. And I thought that was per hour, and I'm like, okay, that's not the worst, at least for us to be competitive with. That's per day. The Mexican minimum wage is set up per a daily wage and not an hourly wage. So regardless of how much you work, that is the minimum pay you're required to receive for the day. So now looking here at some of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that's going to put us in competition with Vietnam, where the minimum wage is 52 cents an hour, and the minimum wage in Mexico is 62 cents an hour. So I know what's going to happen here. And people are going to blame businesses. And I'm not saying there aren't messed up businesses that are using tax evasion and, they're exploitative and all kinds of stuff. But businesses are going to have to do what they have to do. It's all about profit margin. And whether or not you like it, whether or not you think it's immoral, your competition's going to do it. If you want to stay competitive with your competition and keep your price rock bottom so that the American consumers are going to buy it, because I know that a lot of people are probably just going to buy the cheapest product regardless of what is, the end means of what had to be done to get it there to you. People are going to buy the cheapest product. And if a business wants to be competitive in the market and stay in business, that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to take their work elsewhere. And if we don't impose some type of trade tariff or something to offset the competition, there's no way that all these jobs are going to stay in America. So I'm rambling on here, but ultimately the TPP is going to put us at competition in unfair markets. It's going to raise environmental regulations in Europe and make them less stringent so that more pollution is possible. It's going to give corporations the ability to protest legislation if it interferes with their profits, and I believe they can also impose their own legislation, but I have to do more research on this. I'll do a full segment on this at some point. And they will also supposedly, from some sources that I've seen, be able to sue states if they interfere with their profit margins. So we need to see what's going on with this thing, and I'll do another video dedicated to it, but I just wanted to get the first one up and out. Maybe I'll get some video in the next one too, but that's it for now. If you made it this far, good job.